cosmic visionary. Erased. Imagine for a moment a mind untethered from the gravity of its time. A mind that didn't just see the next logical step, but saw the entire staircase disappearing into the clouds. A mind so audacious, so brilliant, it conceived of a pathway not just to new lands or new technologies, but to the stars themselves. We're not talking about a literal rocket ship, not yet. We're talking about something far more profound, a ladder to the cosmos. This ladder wasn't built of steel and rivets. It was forged from insight, from a radical new way of perceiving reality itself. It could have been a new system of mathematics that suddenly made the universe legible in a language no one had ever spoken. It might have been a philosophical framework that redefined consciousness, giving humanity the tools to explore our own inner universes with the same rigor we apply to the outer one. Or perhaps it was a societal breakthrough, a new model for human cooperation so revolutionary it promised to solve age-old conflicts and unlock our collective potential, allowing us to finally turn our gaze from our feet to the heavens. This was the ultimate contribution. It was the foundational axiom upon which entire new fields of knowledge would be built. It was the master key that didn't just open one door, but revealed 1,000 new doors we never even knew existed. And at the heart of this conceptual explosion was a single visionary, a pioneer. Let's call her the first mover. She was the one who stood in the deafening silence of the unknown and heard a symphony. She looked at a blank wall of impossibility and saw the first handhold. Her vision was not an incremental improvement. It was a quantum leap. It was the kind of idea that, once articulated, seems so obvious in retrospect that everyone wonders why they didn't think of it first. But they didn't. She did. She endured the solitude of a singular vision, the frustration of trying to explain a new color to a world that only sees in black and white. She likely faced ridicule, skepticism, and outright dismissal. They would have called her a dreamer, a heretic, a fool. Because pioneers are always fools until they are proven to be prophets. And she did prove it. She laid the first rung, that first critical piece of the puzzle, the one that proved the entire cosmic ladder was not just a fantasy, but a tangible possibility. This first rung was everything. It was the elegant proof, the working prototype, the undeniable demonstration that changed everything. It was the moment the world held its breath. The moment the impossible became inevitable. The ladder was real. The cosmos was waiting. Humanity, all of humanity, was about to be elevated. Her work promised a future where we could climb, explore, and become something more than we were. It was a gift to the world, a foundation laid not for personal glory, but for the shared ascent of our species. She had pushed the boundaries of what it meant to be human. She had given us the stars. And in the initial, blinding light of her genius, it must have seemed like her name would be etched into the annals of history forever, synonymous with the very concept of progress. But history is a fickle narrator, and the brightest lights often cast the darkest shadows. A new story was about to be written, a story in which the ladder remained, but its true architect, the woman who had dreamed it into existence, was about to vanish as if she had never been there at all. This erasure wasn't an accident. It wasn't a simple case of being forgotten by the mists of time. It was a deliberate act, a chilling, systematic removal. Imagine that first foundational rung, the one that bears all the weight, the one that makes the entire climb possible. Now imagine a chisel and a hammer striking with cold, calculated intent. Her name, her legacy, her very essence being violently scratched away until nothing remained but a scar on the face of history. The ladder was still there, for others to climb, for others to claim. But the truth of its origin was gone. This is the story we are here to uncover. Not just the story of one forgotten pioneer, but the story of a mechanism, a protocol of erasure that has been deployed time and time again to silence, to appropriate, and to bury the contributions of those who dare to challenge the status quo. We are about to investigate the anatomy of an intellectual crime. A theft so profound, it robs not just an individual of their legacy, but all of us of our true shared history.
The Erasure Protocol. How does a ghost get made? How do you take a figure of monumental importance and excise them from the story so completely that future generations will walk right past their legacy without ever knowing their name? It doesn't happen overnight. It's a process, a protocol. Let's call it the Erasure Protocol, and it has 3 distinct overlapping phases. Phase 1 is appropriation. The visionary, our first mover, has laid the foundational rung. The idea is now out in the world, raw, powerful, and perhaps a little unrefined. It's disruptive. It threatens existing power structures and established experts. Now enter the second character in our drama, the consolidator. The consolidator is often someone already within the system. They are well connected, they have institutional backing, and they speak the language of the establishment. They don't have the visionary spark of the first mover, but they have something she lacks, legitimacy in the eyes of the gatekeepers. The consolidator sees the power of her idea. They recognize its potential not just for humanity, but for their own career and legacy. So they take it. They don't steal it in the dead of night like a common thief. It's more subtle. They refine it. They standardize it. They wrap her revolutionary concept in familiar terminology, sanding off the radical edges to make it more palatable to their peers. They put a new, more polished frame around her masterpiece and then present it as their own. Because they have the platform, the university, the funding, the publishing house, their version becomes the official version. The first mover's original work is now relegated to being a precursor, an interesting but flawed early attempt. Her role is diminished from architect to, at best, a footnote. Her genius is rebranded. The theft is complete, laundered through the mechanisms of institutional power. Phase 2 is omission. This is a slow, creeping death by 1,000 cuts. With the consolidator now hailed as the father of the new paradigm, the history begins to be written. And history is, by its nature, a process of curation. The first textbook on the subject credits the consolidator as the primary innovator, perhaps mentioning the first mover in a passing sentence. The next generation of scholars, learning from that textbook, cites the consolidator. The first mover's name appears less and less. The story is simplified for mass consumption. History, like a photograph being repeatedly cropped, tightens its focus on the hero of the story, the consolidator. Within a few decades, she is gone from the main narrative entirely. She hasn't been denounced, she has simply ceased to exist in the collective memory. This is the insidious power of the established narrative. It doesn't need to be aggressive, it just needs to be persistent. The gatekeepers, the editors, the professors, the museum curators perpetuate the accepted story, not necessarily out of malice, but out of intellectual inertia. It's easier to repeat the story you were taught than to do the difficult work of excavation. But what if the first mover fights back? What if she refuses to be silenced, to become a footnote in her own story? That's when the protocol enters its third and most vicious phase, discreditation. If she speaks up, she is no longer just ignored, she is actively attacked. The system closes ranks to protect its chosen narrative and its chosen hero. Suddenly, stories emerge about her. She was difficult, she was unstable. Her methods were unscientific and unorthodox. Her personal life is scrutinized. Her character is assassinated. The goal is to poison the well, to make her an unreliable narrator of her own life. They attack the creator to cast doubt on the creation, or at least on her claim to it. This is a classic tactic. If you can't win the argument on the facts, you attack the person making the argument. She is painted as a bitter, jealous woman trying to steal the limelight from the true genius, the consolidator. It is a brutal, effective, and soul-crushing process. She is gaslit by an entire system, forced to question her own reality, her own memory. The injustice is so profound, so total, that it serves as a warning to any others who might dare to challenge the official story. The erasure is now absolute. The crime is not only committed, but the victim is blamed for it. This protocol isn't the work of a single villain, but a conspiracy of societal bias, intellectual jealousy, and institutional cowardice. And its impact is devastating, not just for the erased visionary, but for the very trajectory of knowledge itself.
Block 3. Reclaiming Lost Legacies. So, the crime has been committed. The name is scoured from the first rung, and a new, official architect has been installed in the history books. What are the consequences? It's not just a matter of historical inaccuracy. The ripple effects are profound and damaging, and they echo down through generations. When you erase the first mover, you don't just steal her legacy. You steal a role model from countless future pioneers. Every young person from a similar background, be it gender, race, or class, who looks at the great cosmic ladders of our world sees only the consolidators, the establishment figures. The message, sent subtly but powerfully, is that people like you don't build the first rung. You might be allowed to climb the ladder, maybe even add a rung halfway up, but the foundational, world-changing work, that's not for you. This creates a self-perpetuating cycle of exclusion. It stifles potential before it even has a chance to bloom. How many audacious ideas have been lost to history not because they weren't brilliant, but because the person who had them felt they didn't have the right to? The erasure of one pioneer is the silencing of 1,000 future voices. Furthermore, the very nature of the knowledge itself is often corrupted. The first mover's vision was likely holistic, born from a unique perspective. It may have had ethical or philosophical dimensions that the consolidator, in his haste to claim and simplify it, completely missed or discarded. The latter he presents to the world might be functional, but it is a narrower, less profound version of the original concept. The soul of the idea is lost. We, as a society, are left with a less potent tool, a less complete understanding. We climb the ladder, but we are unaware of the full scope of the cosmos it was meant to reveal. We are living in a world shaped by a Xerox of a masterpiece, a diluted version of a breakthrough. The full potential of the original idea remains a ghost, a path not taken, because the person with the complete map was written out of the story. This is the true cost of the Erasure Protocol. It leaves humanity on a less imaginative, less equitable, and less enlightened trajectory. So what do? We cannot accept history as a fixed, immutable text. We must see it for what it is, a narrative constructed by people with agendas, biases, and blind spots. Our task is to become historical detectives. It means we must actively question the dominant narratives. When we are told the story of a great man and his great invention, we must learn to ask, who else was in the room? Who was in his lab? Whose work did he build upon? Who did the calculations? Whose name is hidden in the footnotes, or in the acknowledgments, or in the unpublished letters? This is the act of reclamation. It is the work of digging, of seeking out the hidden stories, of listening for the silenced voices. It means championing the historians, the researchers, and the storytellers who are dedicated to restoring these lost legacies. It means demanding that our museums, our textbooks, and our documentaries tell a more complete and honest story. This isn't just an academic exercise. The Erasure Protocol is not a historical artifact. It is an active, ongoing process. It happens today in corporate boardrooms, in scientific labs, in creative collaborations, and online. It happens every time a contribution is minimized, an idea is appropriated without credit, or a voice is silenced because it doesn't fit the expected mold. Recognizing this pattern is the first step to dismantling it. We must become vigilant guardians of attribution, champions of the underdog, and advocates for a more inclusive definition of genius. The next time you look at a great achievement, a towering ladder of progress, take a moment to look closely at its base. Look for the scratches, the scars, the faint outlines of a name that was almost lost to us. Reclaiming these names is not about rewriting history. It's about revealing it. It's about building a future where every brilliant mind, regardless of their origin, is given the chance to lay the first rung and have their name carved upon it, for all time. The latter is for everyone. It's time we honored all of its architects.